G'day and welcome to another massive edition of the RDFNL Footy Show, looking ahead to round 13, part 2 of the season. My name's Yeendy, I'm joined by Tara Murray. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Certainly, we've got a nice condensed round this weekend, and we've got a few big games, and I think one result on the weekend, or a couple of results on the weekend, certainly shapes up one of the big games that we'll all be looking forward to, and that is, of course, the match that didn't happen in round 1. We're not going to see Storms impact this game. It's going to be Romsey taking on Diggers Rest.
This is one I think we've all sort of been waiting for a while. Obviously, they have played each other since, but this is the one sort of thing that will give us a true indication of where every team sits on the ladder. Obviously, Diggers Rest is sitting third at the moment. If they get a win, that puts them back up with those top couple. You've got Romsey, who are sitting sixth, a win there, and depending on how results go, that you could have them equal on points with Macedon, Diggers Rest. Look, Riddell, obviously, I think will get the win over Rockbank, so they'll put Riddell still a game ahead of them, but it makes that top 6 even more interesting than what it is, that you've got 6 sides that are pretty even, not just the top 5 like we have been talking about for a few weeks. And
you mentioned earlier on in the week that Romsey needed a scalp. They got it on the weekend against Macedon. Is Diggers Rest a scalp if they get up and win, or are Romsey starting to bridge that gap and maybe they're on par?
Look, I think Diggers Rest has been a scalp for
anyone.
As long as I have covered this competition, to beat Diggers Rest is a scalp.
Yep.
So, and they still are. You look, obviously, they lost a couple of weeks ago to Rupperswood, but it was 4 points. It was anyone's game. That Diggers Rest have done what they needed to do. They've had a few players in and out of the side, and they've been building towards the end of the year. So they're definitely a scalp. And look, Diggers Rest could quite easily finish top 2, top 3, and no one's going to want to play them finals. I don't think anyone's going to want to play anyone come finals, because the results, as I think we spoke about last week, have been pretty mixed between the top sides, that no top side is absolutely dominated against another. Probably the one side at the moment we look at out of that top 6, Romsey's probably been a little bit behind, so they sort of need to play how they did against Macedon last week. They need to play their best football if they are to be competitive against these top sides and be able to challenge them. We did see Romsey did knock off Diggers Rest last year, and that was out at Romsey, so we know Romsey played Romsey Park really well as well too, so they need to play sort of similar football to what they did against Macedon to have a chance.
And I think people have their varied opinions about, maybe the standard of the competition, it's a little bit too one-sided, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to put my Goldfields hat on, and I think the top 6 as it stands at the moment, based on the results we've seen this year, is as good as any top 6 in the Goldfields banner. I know the Ballarat competition, they've got a pretty tight top 6, and the Moorabool, they've got an interesting sort of top 8. But I think in this scenario here, you had Romsey go out and beat Macedon on the weekend. You had Macedon go down to Riddell by 2 points on the weekend. They've been a powerhouse side. We've got Rupert's with Diggers Rest. They're fighting out close games. You've got Wallan, who are seemingly sort of flying under the radar. They're going out and beating sides, and they're getting beating at the same time. This is just... you wouldn't want to put a bet on who would win the premiership.
Look, I was going to say, you'd probably say the same about the Ballarat at the moment. I think there's one game between 2nd and 8th. So there's not much between both of these competitions, and that's what you want to see. Look, there's a lot of talk, obviously. We see with the RDFL, your bottom 3 teams are a long way off those other sides, but that top half of the competition is really, really strong. Yeah. Obviously, look, I think Romsey is still slightly behind those top 5 sides, but we have seen on their day they can beat a top 6 side, as they did against Macedon. And you look...
And what if they win this weekend? I mean, that'll be huge for the competition.
Oh, if they win this weekend, it opens the door even wider to where we sort of see all these teams are at, and you sort of then have to look at, is Romsey a contender? They probably need to get that second scalp, because obviously they were quite easily beaten by a number of these top 6 sides earlier in the season. So if they get a second scalp, then you've got to start taking them into contention of where are they sort of sit, and are they a contender?
Who wins this one?
Look, I think Diggers Rest will. I saw them a couple of weeks ago against Rupperswood, and they could have... It was one bad quarter that cost them there, and they could have quite easily got the win. They were missing a few players who, from what I believe, they're looking to get a few of them back over the next few weeks in the lead up to finals, but I think Diggers Rest will be too strong.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, but I think the result will say more about where Romsey are at. I think if they get up, or they get within maybe 3 or 4 goals, I think it's a true indication that they're here to play.
Definitely, and I think that's what we're sort of seeing from Romsey. They probably started a bit slowly, but then they had those periods against some of those lower sides to get the confidence, build up what they're doing, and now they're starting to get a bit more even spread across the board. Obviously, Jack O'Sullivan has dominated for them this year, but you had the Tasari boys step up on the weekend. You've got Matthew Goodwin, who has obviously added a little bit of experience in that midfield and has been a key. Jack Jebwad's another one who started to step up the last couple of weeks as well. So we're starting to see a bit more spread from from them. And if they can do what they did last week, it'll be quite an interesting game.
Bit of a danger game over at Arnold's Creek, where Melton Centrals do play host to Wallan. And given Central's form against Wood and Heskett a couple of weeks ago, where they virtually dominated the contest, and there was the same Hawks side that pushed Wallan on the road, this is going to be an interesting one.
It's going to be an interesting, and it was interesting the first time these two teams met. I think Melton Centrals were in the game for at least a half, if not three quarters, and then Wallan had to come over the top late. So if Melton Centrals are sort of playing that football where they're mixing it with those top sides, if they can hold on long enough, it could go down to a pretty close match. I think Wallan will be too strong. At the moment, there's too much on the line for them. So obviously Melton Centrals, if they win, it could keep their finals hopes alive, depending on what happens with Romsey, Ziggers rest. But there's too much on the line from Wallan's perspective at the moment. You can go, you want to be trying to finish up as high as that ladder as you can. You probably want that double chance. So they need to be they need to keep winning, and they need to be winning against sides outside the top 6 if they're to do that. So I think there's too much on the line for Wallan.
Particularly if Romsey win on the weekend, they get back-to-back scalps, then you wouldn't want to finish third, because all of a sudden that 6th position is pretty dangerous.
Well, I actually had that conversation with, it was actually a Ballarat Football League coach who said, a football manager who said the same thing. Third position's always sort of been that position where, the best position on the ladder, but we've seen this year you don't want to be finishing. Third's not necessarily the golden runner as it has been in previous years. You've got any of the top 6 can knock each other off, so you have to be on your game all the time to make sure that you are where you are. So that top 2 may even be more important than that third position, which we normally talk about.
So Wallan definitely will win this one, but it'll be a true indication of where Centrals are. They're more than capable of taking the fight up to them.
Exactly, and that's it. It'll be interesting to see. It's another step in that development of Melton Centrals. They beat Wood and Heskett, which was probably their best win for the season, and now it's seen if they can get, like as we talk about Romsey, about trying to get a scalp of a top 6 side, and this is Melton Centrals will be looking to do that.
The final game we'll have a look at, just 3 games this weekend, but we're going into a fair bit of detail. We've got Rockbank and Riddell. The Bombers coming into this game on the back of a 2-point win over Macedon, and Rockbank are just looking to try and build themselves back up after a disappointing loss to Romsey a few weeks ago.
Look, it is a little bit. I think Rockbank would have loved the break. They've had a lot of injuries and a lot of players in and out. So with a young side, I think the break came at a perfect time for them. That opportunity to refresh and refocus and that sort of stuff. And then they're coming against the informed team of the competition. Riddell hasn't lost since round 3. So it is going to be a tough ask. And look, in the form we've seen, Riddell is beating those top sides. It's going to be a tough ask for Rockbank, being that they are one of those bottom sides. I think Riddell will have a big win, but hopefully we can see some positive signs for the Rams.
Be curious to see what happens to the great man, Ricky Cameron, whether his ankle can hold up in time. And after he injured his ankle against Lancefield, and all reports is that his season might have come to a close, but he's making a speedy recovery as well. So if someone like him, if he can get back in, even if it's to maybe play 50% of the game, that's just handy for Rockbank. I know they know that they're not going to have the best day out, but they can push them, and the game being at home as well, it'll certainly give them a bit of an advantage. And look,
and obviously you mentioned Ricky Cameron in that Lancefield game. He kicked 4 goals, so you can put him in the midfield, but then you can put him up forward. I think him going down was probably the factor of the game that sort of changed it from Rockbank's favour to Lancefield a couple of weeks ago. So if you can even have him up forward and then gives you a goal kicking option, that's a bonus for the Rams.
Yeah, but if the way his ankle's sort of going, if you're a coach, you'd probably say just rest it for 1 more week if you can. But you just never know. Hopefully he can get on the park at least in the next few weeks and show us what he can do, and the great things that still to come at Rockbank. Well, Tara, thanks so much for jumping on board again this week, and we look forward to catching up with you later on.
Thanks for having me.